God.
I think that when you're talking about unconditional love, the only time that you can really sort of say that is with a child.
I agree. I think the love you have for a child is much different than a spouse.
Like if you found out, and this is, we won't go deep into this obviously, but that your husband had been diddling kids for 10 years and you had no idea, you'd get out of there pretty quickly and you wouldn't look back.
That's a crime. Yeah, he'd probably go to jail.
Yeah,
but I think marriage is supposed to be a picture of Christ and the church. So Christ's love for the church is unconditional. And marriage is supposed to picture that. It's a broken picture of that.
But even
so it's not
within the church,
perfect.
you can get an annulment if there's violence or if there's cheating or and things like this. So even within like the Christian
life is
purview,
messy.
you can get a divorce for those reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's completely justified. So yeah, I think there's this semantic problem with the word unconditional, which doesn't apply to marriage.
Yeah. But I'm just confused with the whole condition stuff. Jake raises a good point that we don't need to state them, but I'm sure we could think of like scenarios where like there's really abusive behavior either towards you or to a child or to an animal. Like we could think of like monstrous behavior.
Yeah.
Like unconditional love would mean that despite monstrous behavior, you would stay with this person. Because like my point of view, whether you're religious or not religious, I think if somebody is like there's severely abusive or monstrous behavior, that's grounds, even theologically, that would be grounds for divorce. I'm not an expert in...
I agree. I think what my position is, ideally, it's unconditional because it's a picture of what we believe as Christians. But we're in a fallen world, we're in a sinful world, stuff happens, and that's why it says in Matthew, from the beginning it wasn't so, but because of the sinfulness and the hardness of hearts.
So I have a couple questions on this. So you say that it'll probably be a self-fulfilling for me, and I won't experience true love and contentment because I don't think a woman will love me unconditionally and could eventually leave me.
I think if you tell yourself something over and over again, then you're just going to believe
But so
that.
why would it be... I mean, I'm not sure I totally follow the logic. For example, do you think that women who take precautions for safety reasons prior to like going out on a date with a man, like maybe meeting them in a public place, that if you think this, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and if you take the precautions, that it's going to mean that it's going to happen to you?
And there's a difference between smart and then having that preconceived, like repetitive thought going through your head.
But I'm just confused. So my concern with marriage is there are legitimate risks when it comes to money, when it comes to marrying the wrong woman.
And I think because of what you believe, that's really valid, because I don't know the kind of, I don't really know the kind of women that you date. So maybe the kind of women that you date, that's 100% valid.
What if I told you I only date beautiful, amazing women who are the most sweetest, nicest women ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you want to...
Do people change? Like, for example, in the relationship you have, did he change?
I don't think he changed. I just don't think I saw what
So
was
just to be clear,
going on.
wasn't there like abuse in your marriage? So he was abusing, you chose to get married to an abusive man?
I didn't know that was the case. We didn't
So
live
he
together
changed.
until... No, we didn't live together until I didn't know. There were signs that he was. I ignored those signs.
But
he never actually got to that point until we lived together.
Would you advocate for me to live together with a woman prior to marriage?
I don't think it's good. But
Okay,
I think...
so what if I marry a woman and I haven't lived with her, and then post-marriage she starts abusing me?
Well, again, I think that's why you have to really get to know the person. I'm not saying you should get married with someone after knowing them for a week. That's crazy. Or like a couple months, like make sure you really know the person.
Okay.
Can I ask from Brian's worldview, he's not necessarily, I don't think you're a Christian yet.
I'm not Christian, but I have like pro-Christian sentiments.
Right, so culturally Christian.
It's more so like I'm agnostic, but like I'm not like there's...
Do you think that Jesus is God?
I'm not...
So you wouldn't, you wouldn't be, okay.
But I'm not like F religion. I'm like, there's a lot of positive with religion. I have a lot of religious friends. I think there's like a lot of like truth in like Bible verses and stuff. and I have positive sentiments towards the faith.
Yeah.
But I am agnostic.
Gotcha. So from that point of view, would you say that largely these days that marriage is considered a religious institution or like a political institution or a government institution, sorry?
Religious.
But do you think that like the wide consensus amongst people generally is that that's a religious sacrament, or do you think that's just something that you do to sort of cross your vows?
Yeah, I think it's socially like more common for people to get married too, but I do think it's more for religious reasons.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason that I ask is because the way I view it these days is that for the most part, the idea of marriage itself being a union ordained by God has been completely corrupt to the point where now it's viewed as like a secular government institution where you can join your bank accounts, basically. Yeah. So from the secular perspective, when that's all it is, what's actually the point in getting married at all if you don't believe that it's something that's ordained by God and that it comes with those strict parameters?
I think it's not opening yourself up to live a vulnerable and full life. I think when you do lock it in with that person for life, you're opening yourself up to a huge amount of vulnerability and trust and loyalty. And by not doing that, you're kind of just only half doing it and you're not really getting the full experience. And
but like if you are like a Christian, like you say you are, and I'm going to say you are, why would you want people to get married who don't believe in the sacraments and who don't actually believe
in them
that,
getting married?
Okay, so
except to live a full, like to experience life at a deeper level.
But why would you encourage someone to get married if they did not want to do it through the church, or if they didn't want to do it in a way that actually represents what marriage is supposed to be?
Well, our society was built on the family unit. So,
right, so you're looking at it more of a utilitarian sort of perspective. It's like the utility of people having a nuclear family and having a two-parent household is good for society, rather than it being that marriage is actually something that's ordained by God and that we have to stick to those parameters.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I think that kind of makes sense from your perspective, but from the secularist perspective, I actually can't really even see a good reason to get married considering the risks. If you look at it as the secular sort of institution that it's sort of become these days, I mean, like there's so much risk involved, and if you don't believe in that sort of spiritual side of it, then I can sort of see Brian's perspective.
That argument of like, well, if it is good for society and we're not doing it because it's a huge risk, isn't that the same argument that women take when it comes to having kids? Like, it's good for society, but it's a big risk for them.
What do you mean by that?
So you're saying that men shouldn't get married if they don't have religious beliefs because it's a huge risk.
It's just
for
that
them.
there's no meaning to it.
And there's no incentive.
Yeah. It doesn't really mean anything because marriage is something that's a religious sacrament.
For sure. Isn't that the same logic though when it comes to women having kids? We would say it's good for society, it's good for all that, but then it puts them in a vulnerable position. It puts them at risk for things.
I mean, if they're having kids outside of wedlock, maybe.
Which most of the times they are because they're not getting married.
Yeah, having kids is obviously good for society, and you want it to be inside of the nuclear household.
Isn't like a nuclear family good for society too?
Yeah, it is.
You need marriage.
Yeah. I'm not saying that from the utilitarian perspective that isn't a correct point of view, because it is a correct point of view to want people to get married and have kids. But if you're looking at it from like more of an individualistic perspective of like, what are my values? If you step into Brian's shoes for a second.
Isn't that the problem though, that we're so individualistic?
Yeah, I know. It is a problem, and I'm saying ideally that everybody would be getting married and it would be like a religious sacrament and everything. But if you actually had to step into his shoes for a second and think, I'm not a religious person, I don't believe in marriage as it should be necessarily, why should he actually get married?
I don't think he has any reason to get married, except that it would be good for society and all that. But, if he doesn't want to get married, he's not going to get married, and I don't have anything against that. For him to not get married is...
Well, we won't linger too long on this one, but you also wrote, when it comes to atheists being opposed to marriage, it just means that they don't have the balls, trust, or loyalty to lock it in with that person for life.
I kind of talked about that with Jake when you were up, but...
I was listening to everything, okay. But I mean, so when it comes to the whole having kids family, you can have a monogamous for life relationship with a woman.
What is this? What are the statistics of that?
Doesn't matter.
Of that happening right now? Like, do people do that right now?
What do you mean?
Do people live,
have like kids and stay with each other without marriage all the
right.
time?
So what are the stats on that?
I'm not sure. Tell me.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me the
I don't
divorce
know.
statistics?
Oh, they're high. They're like they're probably closer
Okay.
to like 60-70%.
Well, then wouldn't this just be evidence that even with marriage, like most of them end?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's
Okay, so then why should I get
issue.
married? You're saying, well, what's the statistics? I'll just throw right back in your face the statistics when it comes to marriage, which are like the
They're crazy
outcomes
high,
are
yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
It's a
And
pro-
worse
it's a
if you look at
problem.
it from a secularist, because the Christians are sort of like holding up the fort in the sense that they don't get divorced as much.
Right.
But then if you looked at just the secularists, and especially liberal women who are college educated, it's like a humongous
Yeah,
divorce
it's a
rate.
much deeper issue than marriage for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I can have kids, don't need marriage. I can have a lifetime girlfriend. We have kids. We live in the same house together. Why do I need marriage?
I mean, you're always just going to have the option to dip. She does, you do.
Hold on, but in a marriage, you always have the option to dip. Oh, so it just makes it harder. So like we're staying together because it's harder for us to leave each other. Is that a good reason to stay with somebody?
I think you should stay with
Also,
them
it's
because
like-
you made the choice.
You go to the courthouse, get the divorce. Like, I mean, maybe you get a lawyer to do it. The lawyer handles everything. It's not that hard. Hello, lawyer, I want a divorce. Okay, cool. Spend like an hour with me on the phone. We'll go over everything. Divorce.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues.
Wait, just to
with
be
that.
clear, you think like an hour on a phone with an attorney, like that's
That's not a good solution, no. I think people should try and work through their marriages.